One day in my film class, our professor made us watch a clip from a really old movie. And he asked us a question, do you guys see anything problematic in it? And my answer was not really. Maybe some shots were not that good. There were some problems with the cinematography, but that's it. He made me watch the video again. And this time when I watched it, I realized that all these actors, they are white actors who are painted as black characters. And I was really shocked about it because I've never seen something like this. And that made me curious about this whole topic. And this curiosity led to a lot of questions. And that's what this whole documentary is about. So let me take you guys to the cinematic discovery of curiosity and reflection. Can you explain the origins of blackface and how it evolved as a form of performance in American entertainment?
How it started originally, I'm not sure about it, but in early cinema, white people played the roles of black people and makeup was used. For example, David Griffith in his film Birth of a Nation, he used white actors and painted their faces black to play the roles of African Americans. Now at that time, although it was not as sensitive as it is now, this topic, but it still caused a lot of stir. It wasn't just for Caucasian actors playing the roles of African Americans, but it was more specifically about showing KKK as saviors, as heroes in the film, and showing African Americans as, villains and bad guys. But now that's not the case. Even, we're much more conscious and aware about these cultural sensitivities. So painting face black to play the role of someone, or even just for Halloween, could be very insensitive culturally and cause, hurt people's feelings.
What cultural or societal conditions allowed blackface to become a popular form of entertainment despite its discriminatory nature? What do you think why it happened?
History. United States history made this become something a norm in the society and culturally accepted, because the United States has been ruled by the Europeans who took over and also started slavery. And they were always seen, people of color were always seen as less of the same value, the same class, same level. So they were treated differently and looked down at. That became a norm because that norm was created by the class of society that was in power, hold capital, hold power, political power, and money. So that became part of society, and of course it doesn't mean that it was accepted by people that were oppressed, for example, in this case, African Americans, or even Native Americans. But they were not in power. They didn't hold capital. So it just continued over decades and centuries. It became normal, it became okay, until things changed slowly and gradually, especially in the second half of the 20th century, when women got their rights and when segregation was addressed, and African Americans, right, they received their rights to vote, to have, be part of financial infrastructures in the society. Although a lot has changed in the last, let's say, 100 years, but still, we as a nation, the United States, is struggling with this problem of race, black and white. So that became normal, and especially when the movie, it was shown that through the years, through decades, when it was shown that bad people are people of color. For example, in John Wayne's movies, always it's the white person, middle-aged white person, who is the one who brings peace, order, and justice to a town that's been savaged by bad guys. And who are those bad guys? People of color. So that became normal. That's how they were seen. When people are not allowed to sit in the front of the bus because they are not the same level, that becomes, normal for people that, yes, we don't want it to be the same university, same classroom with us, same bus with us. work the same level with us. You should do all other jobs that are lower, like cook for us, clean for us. If you look at it, still we're dealing with the same problem. The United States is still dealing with the same problem, although demographics might have changed a little bit, but when you look at it, immigrants, majority of labor work, low-level works are done by the immigrants.
Even though so many things are changing, but then also when I look at the mainstream movies, the big movies, I barely see any very big film director or filmmaker who is black. So what do you think what we are missing till now? Why is this happening?
Problem is still the same. If you look at the studios, and if you look at the demographics in the studios, who are the ones who are holding the capital? Who are the ones who are owning these studios? And what type of movies are they making? So majority of them are Caucasian demographic, and they're holding the capital.
I'd say the reason behind that is that we don't really get the support we need when it comes to the arts, you know? It's just always like, I don't think black filmmakers in general don't get the support they need when it comes to film, like any kind of film industry, whether it's post-production, pre-production, or in production. It's just always more like they have to be in boxes, you know, just more like something other than film, because usually you don't see many black people in film. So most people, when they think of a director, they think of Christopher Nolan or like Stanley Kubrick instead of Spike Lee or Jordan Peele, you know? It's just not enough support for those kinds of voices or our kind of voices.
But it has changed. A lot has changed. We see in the movies, we see that people of color are shown in a positive light. It isn't just, you know, that the white guys are the good ones and the people of color are the bad guys. Things have changed because the society has changed. One thing that helps is have people of color tell their own stories, and that makes a change.
No, have you ever experienced getting treated in a different way just because you're black, or you have seen someone else getting treated like that?
I know a lot of circumstances, especially like what happened to me, because of my skin color and how I'm from. It's just very disheartening to go through those circumstances because they really just emphasize how different I am. It's just like, wow, like, why do I have to go through this, you know?
Growing up with my family, you know, me wanting to do film and videography, that's something that I didn't see a lot in my community and just in the society in general. It wasn't a lot of like black or African American, you know, filmmakers that were in the spotlight. There wasn't a lot of them, and so, you know, choosing that as something to pursue was hard. But my family ended up being supportive. But I can see just in general within society, a lot of young African Americans wanting to go into film. That's not something that's always talked about with their families because, you know, like there's always this, you know, perceived notion of what their career should be. And that's not, you know, filmmaking is not something that you would generally see like with a lot of African Americans. It's become like a hard dream or reality to have.
I definitely feel like, not necessarily treated, but kind of perceived in a different way. I think as a black person who went to a predominantly white school and then definitely predominantly white film school, I have kind of a different way of thinking about things because of my background. I have a different set of like things that influenced me and inspired me, and I'm definitely perceiving different pieces of media like just differently based off of my own race, and I'm like definitely hyper aware of it in those environments. And I do feel like sometimes, like maybe sometimes people walked on eggshells when talking to me just because I was Black, even though I was just as interested in the medium as them, or sometimes people were just blatantly disrespectful because they didn't want to even like consider my race and my being there as like something that was worthy of like being analyzed. Like sometimes when like we would bond over films or watch films or like have to consume films that had the N-word in it, and especially when it was used in a derogatory sense, and that was sometimes uncomfortable. So I almost felt like skipped over or invisible, or people were like so hyper aware of me that like it just kind of felt uncomfortable. Like I couldn't just simply exist. I was always like looked at as Black first.
So what do you think, who should be blamed for the support? Like from where do we need the support? Is it from our parents, from the society, from the government, from the schools? From where? What do you think?
I would say, I guess at a micro level, our parents, because again, like, you know, Black filmmakers, there's still like barriers to go through, and it's just so stigmatized because of, you know, film is just such a hard industry to get into, and, you know, it's even harder if you're Black too. You know, you have to jump through all these hoops and work twice as hard to get through. So I would say that's when it's a society level of trying to be more accepting of more diverse voices, you know, because those voices deserve to be heard for everyone. And everyone, there is an audience for those voices, but it's just really hard to get past those barriers.
So when I came to school and I started pursuing filmmaking independently, just like as a young adult, I had this background of films of, you know, like all these Black biopics, like 42 and Selma and Red Tails. Like these are films that I'm very familiar with, as well as like the work of Spike Lee. And so I do feel like I had you know, Black artists to look up to. Like I even went to NYU because I knew that Donald Glover went there. He's a huge inspiration to me. But that is kind of like, I sought that out myself, and I didn't necessarily see that reflected within the curriculum at NYU, or when I was talking to peers, did they even know who Spike Lee is, who I feel like is very, very, very famous. And so I don't necessarily feel like, first off, I don't think Black artists have always been given the opportunity to create, let alone being at the forefront of being able to like kind of share their art in the mainstream circle. And so it's kind of like on the duty of Black people to support other Black people, and they're kind of like, there are like great Black filmmakers and great Black artists, but they're kind of just for Black people. And I think that's something that as a filmmaker myself, I want to get out of. Like I want Black ideas and Black characters and Black artists to be a part of the mainstream, to be everywhere, to be unavoidable.
What do you think? How can we encourage like just normal students to pursue film?
I'm going to answer this question in two different ways. One is through the school that I'm part of, through this institution that I'm part of. Schools in general could provide opportunities, for example, financial aid, financial help and support for students, especially underrepresented and marginalized students, which many schools do it, and it helps. That's one thing that helps encourage students. Part of this is also demographics, where an institution is located and what are the demographics in that of people in that area. So we are, almost 40% of our student body is Hispanics. Where I worked before, for example, Texas, majority of our students were African Americans. So that also affects too. Another thing that affects the students, for example, that are coming from cities and states, different cities and states to California to study, it's cost of living. It becomes impossible for them to live here and pursue their education in California. To answer the question outside of academia, I think the African American population and in general people of color, they have been, with all changes that have happening, social and political and cultural changes in the society in the last few decades, they have been incorporating themselves into different infrastructures in the society, whether it's political or it's artistic, cultural, social, business. So people are doing this stuff, but people of color, but it's still because they got their rights to vote or to be considered equally just a few decades ago. And they're people, African Americans, they are still working hard. They are still struggling to make their way into the society in terms of having businesses that represents them in their culture, making movies, if it's in the field of films, to have their studios, because that requires capital, finances, to tell their stories. One thing that has helped is the age of digital. Now everybody can make a film. You have a cell phone, you can make a film. You can tell your story and it doesn't have to be a film. You can make a short video of TikTok and express what you think, what you feel about anything in the society. And that's part of it because it has given people a voice, especially people of color, to have a representation, to have their voice told by themselves, then someone else telling their stories.
I guess like the one way we could promote Black filmmakers would be in the Oscars, because the Oscars historically have not been kind to minorities. Of course, it's, you know, recently it has been changing, especially with like Chloe Zhao winning Best Picture recently, and other like minority films, like Asian-led films. But there's also been sort of disparity with like other minority films, like with Black and Hispanic films, especially with like the Green Book case for Best Picture, even though, for example, Green Book, I felt like oversimplified the topic of racism. Meanwhile, you had a movie like Black Klansman that more accurately reflected our present and our past and potentially our future. And you only see it winning one Oscar for Best Screenplay, even though that was probably a more topical and accurate movie for the time. So I guess it's really on Oscar voters and promoting as one example for that.
Tell stories that come from you, from your life experiences, from your community's experiences, because those are unique voices that cannot be replicated with any other voice. Anyone else telling that story will not have that authenticity. It needs to come from that community, from the people from that community. That means people of color must have representation. They must have agency. Who can make them those agencies? Themselves. They need to make. If you don't seize the moment, if you don't grab the opportunity, no one else is going to give you that opportunity. You need to make that opportunity.
Well, I think the school has provided a good community, like, for what it's done, and just, you know, it's always been an open, you know, welcome to, you know, anyone who's like interested in film, and I feel like a lot of the programs that are held at Kalu with seminars or networking events have been amazing opportunities, and that's something that I would think would be beneficial to continue doing, and just opening up doors to, you know, young people of color or you know, people just wanting to step into that world, giving them, you know, a possibility or showing them that there's opportunities for them too in this space, even if, you know, before they might not have seen it on a broader scale. I feel like just like all the networking events and the programs that have been held here have been amazing ways that they've, you know, helped with that. So continuing with that is definitely, you know, a good outcome.
What's going to be the one piece of advice for any Black aspiring filmmaker or any person of color aspiring filmmaker?
Tell your stories. tell meaningful stories. No one else can tell those stories but you.
It seems you're doing pretty good. The government is doing their job. The society is also changing in a very progressive way. The school is also doing pretty good. But then also, why does it become so controversial when Disney tries to cast a black character rather than casting a white character? Why do we still see black actors getting the stereotypical roles as they are getting before? Why do we see black filmmakers getting excessive criticism even though after accomplishing something really big, like Jordan Peele? He got Oscar, but then also his and his whole cast work got discredited. Why do we see all these sort of problems? That means there is something wrong in our society. There is still something we are missing. We have to work on it. Whatever we are doing for the black filmmakers to make the film world more accessible and inclusive, enough? Is it enough? I'm gonna leave this question to you guys. Is it enough?